Thank you everybody for coming this evening on this beautiful Saturday here in DC. Wanted to joining us here for a talk about the graphic history of hip hop. My colleagues and I, Tim Fielder and Dr. Walter Greason, have put this amazing book together. Dr. Greason is the writer and Tim Fielder is the illustrator, and we're going to have a great talk hosted by William and Jones about what inspired them, how this whole thing came to life. Certainly ask them questions if you have any. I'm going to turn it over to these guys and let's go.
Well, thank you. And your name is?
Oh, I'm Christina Hunsbrook. I am the third partner with these guys up here.
All right, thank you. We had to make, because she was definitely going to walk off without saying that. So she is one of our managing partners, and I don't think we would be where we were without just when you just, you need somebody like, just stay in line, get over. That's what she does, and she's fantastic.
Oh, thank you.
And she just aged down a year just recently.
Cool. Well, first of all, thank all of you for coming out this evening. They always say you could have been any place else, but you chose to come here. And I truly appreciate it, and I know they appreciate it as well. As was stated, my name is William Jones. And among other things, if I could just take a moment to kind of plug myself a little bit, I am a historian and an Afrofuturist. And really, that's what put me in contact with these two gentlemen. And how many times have we talked?
Ooh. Just online or just
online?
I don't know.
Yeah, lost track, right? So I am an Afrofuturist. I have a company called Afrofuturism Network. If anyone is interested in it, please check out afrofuturismnet.com. And I also host a talk show, and these gentlemen have been on it, Into the Afroverse, and I do talks like these across DC. And Sankofa has been so gracious to open the doors. And actually, it's the second time that I've come in to do this conversation with these two gentlemen. I've been here before, where I've been plugging my own book, but now it's great to just sit here and be able to ask all the questions instead of folks firing questions at me. So basically, as already stated, I'm going to have this conversation with these gentlemen, but we'll also have time to have questions from the audience. Okay, so with that being said, let's get started. So real quick, I'm sure you folks already heard, but we have these two gentlemen here. Tim Fielder, awesome artist, Afro-futuristic artist, just all around great artist. And we're going to be talking about his contributions to this work and some other works that he's done in the past. And also we have Dr. Greason here, academic extraordinaire, and really one of the foundations of what is now, this booming thing called Afrofuturism. So I just want to extend my thanks to both of you for inviting me to come up and be part of this conversation. I truly appreciate it. So to start things off, and I'm sure you've been asked this question a dozen times, so let's make it a dozen and one. What led to the creation of this graphic novel?
So in December of 2022, the New York City Department of Education asked, I've been working with them on a number of projects. They said, is it possible to put together a graphic novel about the history of hip hop? And I was like, yeah, no, let's get a script and you put the research together and you do it, but you need an artist. And I was like, I think I know the artist I need to find for this. And so reached out, got contact with Tim. Tim and I had done some work together on N Square on reducing nuclear weapons spread around the world, and it was just brilliant. I think we're at the point where we're about to show some of that work for the first time.
Next week.
And so ever since I saw how brilliant he was, how efficient his skill is, I was just like, yeah, let me try and get this man on my calendar. And he was very gracious, jumped right up and said, yeah, we can get this done. And so about a month later, we were under contract. Took about 3, almost 4 months to kind of settle on the core of the script. I started doing the art and the breakdowns. Took about another 4 or 5 months of revisions plus art. And then November of 2023, it was ready for all the students in New York City, and they printed up 100,000 copies. Students went wild. We ran around the city doing professional development, and just they demanded more. And so we were so shocked and overwhelmed by the enthusiasm that we came back and were like, okay, how do we make this a full graphic novel? And so that took another really hard 2-3 months.
Well, let me just add this part. Okay, so the book, the 24-page version from the New York City Department of Education, again, was free. They released it, 100,000 copies, and sent them to all the schools. New York City has over 1 million students, right? But then they had versions that are online that are freely downloadable, right? And I always have to say this because without her, my thought was, oh yeah, man, let's do an extra 10 pages or something. But Christina, we had our company meetings that we have to have all the time because we had decided we would do a company, but we didn't have a name for the company at that time. Christina, get it with that phrase, and they're giving away the farm. They're giving away the farm. And I was like, no, because it didn't hit me till she said it that, oh my God, they're giving away the farm. So I was like, what are we going to do? Because what are you going to do? You're going to have a 24-page book and make it 30 pages? That's not enough to warrant someone saying, okay, how is this going to be any different than what I could already get for free? And we had a meeting. I'll never forget, I was in upstate New York at the time, working with Robin Reed. And we had a meeting and, we were having a conversation. And we were still in the process of building our website at that time, and it was a really interesting period because it was like we couldn't be over aggressive with our marketing for what we were going to do because we had agreed to give New York City the time to properly promote the floppy, the 24-page comic. But we were building the website. And I asked this guy, well, look, man, we need to do some stuff for the website. So what I need you to do is to do a timeline of hip hop, right? Thinking, okay, he'll give me a brief breakdown of the 70s and a brief breakdown of the 80s, 4, 5 tops, right? This dude comes back with 45 years worth of breakdown by the year.
Don't ever ask a historian for a time.
Now I know. So I'm looking at this and I'm like, and of course, Christina had emphasized to us, well, what are we going to do? And it suddenly hit me, that's the next part of the graphic novel. We're going to add this timeline feature to it. So I begin now, of course, that would extend, it went from 44, 42, 45 pages till it went to 61 pages in total, bringing the graphic novel to 92 pages. I'm so good. But, and of course, I did a little bit myself because, you can't talk about hip hop. You got to have Arsenio Hall. As a mainstream, but, okay, you got Fab Five Freddy, which is great, but you can't, you got to have Dr. Dre and Ed Lover. You got to have that. So that's the problem, as I'm sure anyone who's worked in history, is that it uncovers things, this is enough, but then it leads to something. So it's a rabbit hole that will keep going and going and going. So the end result was from the beginning of December to the end of January, I worked approximately 7 days a week for almost 2 months straight. And I finished the extension. It took me about another month to get everything laid out. But it went to press. Well, we put it up for pre-sale in March. And by April, we premiered at the Schomburg Black Comic Book Festival. And
number one on Amazon.
Which was weird, Because just like when Infinite came out, that was number one on Amazon for like 3 hours on one day. Right. But this kept going. And I was like, well, don't get, it'll go away. This won't last. And next thing you know, a month, 2 months later, it's still number one. And then by the third month, it dropped. But it was in the top 3. And it was, after a while, the soft cover and the hard cover were trading blows, And where is it now?
Top 3.
You see what I'm saying? So I never had nothing like that. So, yeah. I'm sorry, well, that's pretty accurate, right?
That's pretty accurate, and we were trailing Taylor Swift for a while.
Right, you know what I mean?
That's not so bad.
Always got to put her interject herself into stuff.
That's great. So, and congratulations. So, we're going to talk more about your combined effort on this. But for folks that may not know you as individuals, can you speak a little bit about yourselves and what brought you to Afrofuturism, brought you to this project, kind of how the two minds came to meet?
All right, so yeah, we did this project together, working on Afrofuturism with Ronaldo Anderson. I don't know if everybody knows Ronaldo, but you will very shortly. He has a brand new book that's about to drop. He has been theorizing the structure of Afrofuturism for 20 years, and is currently at Temple University, where he's kind of inheriting the mantle from Malefi Asante. And Ronaldo was very wise in kind of making sure we stay in contact. He's built an international movement called the Black Speculative Arts Movement, and that, prior to Black Lives Matter really breaking out and becoming a national, international movement, BSAM was building what Afrofuturism was going to evolve into. And so there were a series of conferences. I think our first was when we were meeting down at in Jackson.
That was the first one that was, well, yeah, no, BSAM was at Harris Stowe University. Originally, that was the first one. Harris Stowe was a HBCU in St. Louis. And Ronaldo was there first. And he started, I never forget, there was like 20 people that showed up. Right, and of course now here we are years later, and literally BSAM will be at the UN next weekend. So it's grown.
Yeah, so 2012, 13, 14, 15 was when Mike Brown was killed, and we had an event at Princeton that broke it out. All kinds of writers and artists were there at that event. But then, you know, the big deal for me was I had been doing what folks call black sci-fi before I ever did history. So published a novel, published a couple short stories with Stanford University, but then turned into a historian. I was just writing facts about the past, and how to understand the world in detail more. And so I didn't write as much fiction. And this came about where from 2001 to 2008, with Christopher Priest and Reginald Hudlin, I basically drafted the design for what you all saw in the Black Panther movie for Wakanda. So like where the roads would be, where the rivers would be, what kind of technology they had, how the demographics of the country operated. So I wrote all that from 01 to 08. And then 8 years later, we see the character show up in a Captain America movie, and then we published all of it. And that just changed my life. Like for the next 4 years, because of the success of Black Panther, all I did was Afrofuturism. And so that's what got me into the piece talking about controlling nuclear weapons. And that set off the story where I could actually bring Tim to New York City and say, we need to do this comic for the students that blends Afrofuturism and hip hop. And that's why the book took the shape that it did.
What about you?
Yeah, so for me, it started more along the lines of, I've been a practicing Afrofuturist, visual Afrofuturist, since I was like 12 or 13 years old. I'm from Mississippi. I come from a family of filmmakers and visual artists, you know, for better or worse, this is what it is at this point. And how should I say, I was always doing comic books from a very young age because my siblings did that. Fast forward to Star Wars and Heavy Metal Magazine and Alien, the works of Ridley Scott, Blade Runner, James Cameron had a significant effect on me, but also films like Night of the Living Dead, where the brother dies at the end of the movie, or Leviathan, where the brother dies at the end of the movie, or, you know, Empire Strikes Back, where there's just one brother, you know, sister, you know, and it just keeps going on and on and on. So that combination of things and what I classify, or what I assume is the study of the process of Black aesthetics, which I think was brought into prominence by Haile Gerima. And I kind of siphoned off of that to my oldest brother, indirectly through his studies there, and I began to employ it into my art style. And I won't even go into the whole story of how I became, you know, decided this is what I'm going to do. But let's just say it was a traumatic enough event where everything became Black. And that made me, you know, I've done that my entire professional life. So when I came to New York City in '87 to become a professional cartoonist, to such an extent where I dropped out of school and just went right into it. It's been that clear since then. Now, the interesting thing is I've had points where I've worked in comics, you know, I was working, but, you know, never like prominent, but working until the industry crashed in the late 90s, 2000. Then I went into video game design. And as Haile will tell you, my skill set went from analog to everything was digital. So I draw in the computer. Very often my environments are done with 3D. More recently, I began to employ game engine technology because, why draw it over and over again when you can just build it once, light it the way you want, and then just use your paint over technique, which is heavily used in film and video games. So that's what I learned from having been in the video game industry for a period. So that all that skill set I've taken, I've now employed that into my work, and been able to use it with my projects Infinitum, Maddie's Rocket, and now the graphic history of hip hop. And I'm fortunate enough to be able to do it because unlike other jobs I've done, and I use the word job, but what it is that you're a freelance artist most of the time. I'm actually part owner of this company because this guy had the foresight. So a word to the wise, you want good work from an artist, you want them to be able to literally sacrifice their body, give them skin in the game. Give them skin in the game, and what it is, they will do what they have to do because it's part of that process. And so it's changed my life even more so than the earlier books. Smithsonian, we were at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. Can you believe that? And just coming, what's up? We're in Sankofa.
Yeah.
And next week we'll be at the UN. Basically showing the work that we did. The first time I ever worked, I met Walter in 2016 at Planet Deep South there, which is a kind of Afrofuturist symposium that was going on. But we first kind of saw each other's work during the N Square symposium. It was on N Square and BSAM. It was a think tank, nuclear disarmament. There was about 40 Afrofuturists and only 3 artists, visual artists. So I was one of 3 guys, and I did a bunch of images that are being set up now to be printed and framed and showcased in conjunction with the United Nations Summit of the Future General Session, which goes from the 20th through the 24th, or somewhere around. Hey, who knows? Yeah. Right. What it is all next week, and it's affiliated with my company, Diesel Funk Studios, graphic history company. We're all partners, along with DigiMentors as a sponsor. We have a salon, which is it's gonna be really busy, guys. And so we're blessed. It's changed our life with this book, and we were approached by the Library of Congress today.
Oh, congratulations.
Today, literally 4 or 5 hours ago, we're sitting there vending at Small Press Expo. Lady comes up to us and said, "Look, can we have you booked for the Small Press Expo? For Library of Congress." You think, they just she pulls out a contract and everything. We're like, sure. Because then the other people who we know, like, is this real? Like, yeah, man, yeah, they've been around. Then the head of SBA, I'm sorry, I'm totally going off track. But this is now in the Library of Congress. That's crazy. My other books aren't even in the Library of Congress.
Right.
So there you go.
No, congratulations to you both. So in terms of this book in particular, in your opinion, what is it? Because now hip hop is everywhere. Okay, that wasn't always the case, especially for younger folks taking it for granted. I had to stay up midnight to hear it. In New York, birthplace of hip hop. They can stay like 2 in the morning just to hear hip hop. So now it's everywhere. What do you think it is about hip hop that has kind of separated itself from other musical types? Because we have R&B, we have jazz, but none of these music forms have had the impact that hip hop has had. So what do you think it is about this particular genre of music that has elevated, so to speak, above these other forms?
Well, you do yours and I'll do mine after this.
So I've been teaching hip hop since '94, and like the way I think is wired by the music that grew. Like I was born the week after First Party, so like by the time I was 5 years old, just the way I thought, the way I breathed was shaped by hip hop. Right. And what I end up trying to explain to students when I teach the class is I will play for them R&B and blues music. I'll get them familiar with the antecedents, the way jazz and the way jazz improvisation evolves. We'll do all that in the first period just so they get their ear attuned. But what they immediately pick up on is what I call lyrical density, is that the amount of content being communicated in a hip hop song, you start printing out lyrics. I have Ella Fitzgerald's whole catalog. It doesn't match up to like Nas's Illmatic. It's just the number of words is so much higher. And so the ability to take all of that thought, convert it into sound, and then make it impassioned, make it so it's urgent. That is the magic at the basis of hip hop. And they fuse it with these beats and these samples that are just straight magic when you're able to take all of the most impactful pieces of organized sound and then repurpose them.
Right.
Taking something like You Make My Heart Beat, and that beat from that song being converted into this widespread, multi-purposes experience that just reshapes the sense of dance.
Right.
And let you know like the party is on. Like it's just hip hop takes all of the elements from the music traditions that came before it. I remember seeing like how Wu-Tang did it, taking kung fu music, sound clips, and using that to then craft a sense of how their narrative would evolve. But I immediately was like, yo, would we ever come to the day when somebody takes like samples of opera or classical music and turns it into the way these break beats work? And there was this dude, probably I want to say I heard him in 96, 97, before he had a record contract, called Stu, The Enemy of Mankind. And his group was called Jedi Mind Tricks. And all they did was take European classical sounds and turn them into hip hop break beats. And it's just, if you've never heard it, it's absolutely insane. It's not at all what the music was designed to do, but the lyricism plus the beat plus the intensity. Now it's not just kind of what we do for entertainment. Like when you listen to liberation movements around the world, you look at what's going on in Palestine. The MCs coming out of there that are using that to fight colonialism, to tear down empire. And that to me is what the power of hip hop is that you had protest music, you had the resistance sound of the slave spirituals, but like hip hop takes all of that and fuses it, not always with anger, but always with passion. And the hip hop passion that it taps into is something integral to who we are as human beings. Like our spirit feels released when we hear something that really transforms us. And hip hop just made an entire new framework for that no one had even imagined was possible in the mid-1970s. So that for me is what hip hop does. And what I'm glad about the book is that we see the students read a particular lyric and they hear the sound that they remember hearing.
Right.
And so they get wrapped up just in like this one little line in there and they're just vibing with the page. And it's just this amazing experience where it's not, most history books come off as dry and you're just getting the facts and memorizing the sequence. This is not that. This is a thing where you turn the page and you're getting a visceral experience because of the way the music is embedded in it.
Excellent. What about for you? What do you think separates hip hop from other forms?
Oh my God. Well, I think what's separate is passion and aggression. I'll explain to you what I mean. I guess it's probably time to now, because I've never said this publicly.
Do it.
So I'm a square. I'm a square. You know, I grew up in the Mississippi Delta, so it wasn't like I had a choice. We were raised on a steady diet of Bobby Blue Bland. All of the Delta Blues guys, not old Robert Johnson. Didn't listen to Robert Johnson. They wasn't playing Robert Johnson. Everything was, B.B. King. It was electric blues. That's what it was. So I was raised around that funk. So Bootsy Collins, right? And in the 80s, when just before I began to transition into going from Mississippi to Atlanta and then deciding to go to New York, I began to get into alternative jazz. So Ronald Shannon Jackson, I'm sitting there thinking James Blood Ulmer, people like that. I know a lot of people are like, who the hell are you talking about? These are all these people who played with traditional jazz musicians, Cecil Taylor, people like that, but they began to incorporate a lot of avant-garde music and rock
Right.
to their work. That's what I was into.
Yeah.
That to me represented the next stage. So when I moved to New York, the venue that was doing that was Black Rock Coalition. But at the same time, you had this alternative black rock music happening. Hip hop was there,
Right.
and it was around. I remember hearing public. Yeah, I heard, Curtis Blow back in 8th grade back in 1979. But by '89, it was Public Enemy. That's what was happening. And there was some energy and fire to that, but I still wasn't willing to see that
Right.
because I'm like, well, this is something, I was one of those people like, well, they're taking other people's music and subverting it into something else.
Right.
No question, it was powerful. Some of it, but some of it was powerful.
Right.
But this is when I knew, oh, this is going to last.
Oh yeah.
Was I had gone to a kind of a literary salon where they were doing a magazine. I forget, it was a bunch of people who were all artsy fartsy black folks, because artsy fartsy black folk have existed for some time. And I was one, at that time, you can imagine I had hair shaved on the side of my head and the back, and I had dreadlocks, and I wore all black, right? Unlike where I got black pants on, so maybe it's okay. I totally lost it. But I remember Dream Hampton was there. I don't know if anyone knows who Dream Hampton is. Dream Hampton is this figure that has kind of been in hip hop for decades, and I remember she was there, and we left the party together, and I was talking to her about the blues and what I felt like that was gonna go. And I made this statement about hip hop, and she cussed me out in the middle of the street. She was so like, wow, it's gonna change where I went, oh my God. Right? To the point where I never looked at it the same way again. But I knew, oh, these people will kill.
Right.
They will kill before going into irrelevance. They will not see anything. And here we are 50 years later, and so yeah, that's when I knew, okay, this is not, and it began to seep into my professional work because, here I am trying to do black people in spaceships, right. And then it's voice said, hey Tim, I'm serious, but hey Tim, here's an article on Queen Latifah. I'm not gonna turn the work down, so I'm doing images for publication of Queen Latifah in 1990. So this book is a full circle moment for me because I've said this before, but I'll say it, there are images in here that no one knows of. Like there's a Public Enemy image, both of them. The first one was done in 1988 for a news article of Michael Gonzalez, and the other one was done in, it was never published. It was supposed to be in the Village Voice, right? All I did was took those images and colorized them, right? Because what I was doing, the irony of the situation is this is a graphic history. So I said, what I'm going to do is take visual hip hop history, mine, and put it in this book.
Right. And we're running short on time.
Oh, sure.
So quickly.
I'm sorry.
No, I just want to make sure that folks have an opportunity to speak to you and ask questions. But the thing that comes to mind is we talk about the challenges of documenting history and illustrating history. As an artist, what was the most difficult image for you to capture? And as a researcher, in terms, like you said, not only just collecting the information, but making it relatable to the audience and engaging, what was it that was most challenging for you in terms of how to present it in a way that's different? Because folks have been documenting it, now it's popular, folks are doing it, but you're taking a unique spin. So what has been the challenges as an artist and as a documentarian historian in bringing this history to the people?
Yeah, that's wow. I drew in this book here, you would have to count it, but I would assume between 200 and 250 operators in the hip hop world. Technically the most difficult image to do was Ludacris. Oh no, I'm serious. There's a fully painted image of Ludacris on my hard drive somewhere that's never been used. Because in order to get good reference for doing photo real elements, YouTube is an essential tool. However, a person who looks one way when their face is neutral, when they're singing, they don't look like they look in real life. So I took the image of Ludacris, had him, his mouth was all open, and my friends, I said, what do y'all think? Is that Ludacris? They were like, no. I'm like, that's literally Ludacris. I got the screen capture. That's not him. So you can only push so far so technically that was most difficult. Philosophically, no question Kanye West.
Okay.
But that was the easiest to do, technically, because my oldest brother shot a music video on Kanye West. And he asked me to do concept design for that video where he was having like animated faces of him. And I did a kind of a simplified cartoon drawing of his face with one where he's smiling and one where he's that, you know how Kanye does that. I don't know what's going on with him, right? But I did those. We fought with the Department of Education to have those images in the 24 page, and they were like, no. So when we decided to do this, we put those in there. I put those images in, like with the PE images, to try and embed history that this work was going to be used. But just having those two images in there was not enough. What I did was I put one image on one side with the smiling face, the one on the other side with the deadpan face, but I put an image of his mother.
Wow.
Because without his mother, that guy that's his anchor.
Right.
So yeah, that's what I would say. I hope that answered.
No, it did,
Yeah.
definitely. And for yourself as a historian.
Yeah, the writing for the history is a really complicated kind of calculation. This is a book that was designed to be for 11th graders. And so one of my other side things I do research on is media ecology. And it basically lets me break down why Sesame Street works. Why does that work for a particular age group, and that parents can get an extraordinarily educational program, but it's also brilliantly entertaining. That's just one little tiny diamond in a universe full of stars of media ecology. And so in calculating how to actually take the writing, make it translate through the genius of the art that Tim provides, and then bring it back to the place that it will work, not just for 11th graders. And this is what has been the best effect, is that you can take a single panel out of there with maybe just a single word or the name of an artist, and you can teach about color, you can teach about numbers, you can teach about syntax and grammar for someone who is not in 2nd or 3rd grade. Like, you can boil it down to someone who's just getting started learning, and it will be just as impactful, it will be just as powerful, and they'll grow with the book. That's a really difficult thing for someone who is a trained, distinguished professor at an elite institution. And I run into this all the time, and my colleagues always are like, what's going on, man? Why are you dealing with all this academic nonsense? But to be a tenured professor at a predominantly white institution, people hate that kind of work. They don't want it to be accessible to people. A colleague of mine just published a book on decolonizing African agriculture. It is going to be an extraordinarily well-read book. He is a distinguished professor. Lots of people will build policy off of that text. That is acceptable as a resource in the higher education context because of the nature of how it's produced, and it's not accessible to most readers. It's not designed to be. And so to do a work that is by its purpose to be popular, but then just the way Tim talks about the image of the Kanye West mother being behind him, and there are lots of layered images in here where the story is told in the background. You have to really pay attention to the page. But I do that with the words, just with much less space, just trying to talk about, there are nods to Mark Anthony Neal that talk about his work on hip hop studies scholarship, but it's only like 2 or 3 words. And it actually links and kind of connects across pages, because you can't do hip hop studies without engaging with his work. And so that was the challenge for me, was in a page where I might only have 20 to 50 words, and and my students will laugh at me because I give them assignments like this to practice how to be concise.
Right.
But you only have a couple sentences. How do you take a library shelf of content, thousands, tens of thousands, 50,000 words, and pull that into something that when they see it, they're like, I got to learn more about that. Let me punch that word into Google, and I'm going to see what else comes up and comes out of it. That's the way I kind of honored my scholarly foundation to challenge people, but also write in a way that it will work for people who have never been to college, never going to see a grad school.
And interestingly enough, that's exactly what hip hop does, like you pointed out
Yes.
earlier. And it must be true what you said about Sesame Street, because as soon as you said it, I don't know about y'all, but I had like 5 or 6 episodes rush through my mind. So he said Sesame Street, I'm hearing songs and everything else. So it speaks to the power of that. So are we looking at time for the audience right now?
Yeah, if they have questions, you can ask.
So does anyone in the audience, because I can do this all day, but I want to make sure that folks in the audience have an opportunity. Please, it's working. Test it. Well, I thought I was on the mic.
Oh yeah, this brother's voice is incredible. I know no one said it was like that brother's voice is like, yeah. It's just, I want to open it up for the audience. Whoa, okay, what you got to say, man?
It's on. Yeah. Testing.
There you go, man. You got this. All right.
Please.
Oh no, that's
That's
okay.
the
Yes,
live audio.
Yeah.
Sorry, my voice is right now. But how far does the timeline for the graphic history book go to? Like, does it talk about up to like the 2010s or like early 2000s, like Pharrell in my mind, or like early Kanye, all that stuff, or like MF Doom?
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, that's definitely there. So we started 64, 65 with the Civil Rights Act and kind of the decade prior to Cool Herc's Party, just to explain the influences that shape that context. Then for going forward, we end at 2006 with Nas and Hip Hop is Dead. And so there's this moment where the nature of the industry is really changing what it had been imagined to be. But at the same time, we have volume 2 that goes from 2006 to 2023. So that'll be out. And
All right, when's
then
it coming out?
that'll be out by next spring, so March,
Excellent.
April.
Excellent.
And then volume 3 does a whole sweep of placing hip hop in music history. So all kinds of music. How does hip hop fit within that universe of human expression?
Excellent. Excellent. Do we have another question? See a hand up over here.
Go do young lady first.
There we go.
Hello, you mentioned hip hop and different fusion, like with opera. And I was wondering whether you would consider, I think it was Madame Butterfly by Malcolm, I can't remember the last name, McCrary, I think it may have been. He had Madame Butterfly. Are you familiar with that?
I haven't heard it.
Oh, if you look at it, it is definitely a fusion of hip hop and opera. It was done around the 80s. Before the time, around that same time that Blondie did Rapture.
Love it and grateful for the recommendation. That is the best part of these works, is we always find more.
And one other person who did fusion, I think, with opera, hip hop, R&B, jazz, poetry would be Jill Scott. I don't know whether you're considering her for your next volume.
All right, so let me speak to that.
Oh, you got to turn that on.
Okay, I turn it on. My voice is carrying too. Hello, Key. Okay, so to your point, there have been times when we've been working because you just can't see everything. It's like in the 24-page version, we had a guy during professional development, a brother, who was complaining that there was not enough Latino representation in the book. He made a valid case, right? But it's just 24 pages. We can't fit everybody in. So if you go into this 92-page, there are Latinos everywhere. Some people are like, there's not enough women in here. There's sisters everywhere. I covered as many of them as I could, right? Meaning some are written in the script. Others, okay, well, you can't have this person without that person. You can't have KRS-One without Miss Melody. But she's not here with us, right? So it's that kind of process. So what you're saying, yeah, it'll probably end up in the next one. All right, look what you did.
Let me do a real quick thing. I love that you brought up Jill Scott in that piece. Just a small footnote I left out of the evolution towards this point. In 2013, I did an online comic called The Holy Bible, Dignity and Divinity. where I basically flipped a number of Bible stories and made it about the women in the stories rather than the men. And the thing that got me in the most trouble was that we suggested and we illustrated that what if Mary had a daughter? And so to cast that image, we used the likeness of Jill Scott to be the daughter who then becomes the savior. So you will never get an argument from me about Jill Scott and their importance in our culture.
I think we had another question. My question, Jeff Kennedy, and I wanted to thank you. Now I read this completely different after explanation and understanding the backgrounds and the mixing of genre to put a purpose on each single quote that's on the page. And now I see the historical significance of the mixing and how each one was selected. And I think what people bring to their knowledge of history and their education levels and their background, they bring something to that few little words that speaks to everyone differently. It's not so much what the words are saying, it's what you're bringing to it that brings out, so I had a chance to read each one now a little different quickly. I'll take another stab at it. But let me ask you this question. When y'all did the project in New York City, did they say anything? Because I remember when I was at Union Theological in New York, I went to Teachers College and I had this book called Guerrilla Arts, Hip Hop. I don't know if you're familiar with. You are Gabriel Ben. And he was like, "Well, we'll give you a full scholarship if you come over here and get a doctorate." I was like, "What?" And so now that I'm listening to you, I see why they were so adamant. And but they talking about any earlier efforts at doing what you accomplished?
Well, I can speak to that. I think, at least I hope I can speak to it. So, how many people, and this might answer your question right now. How many people here are familiar with Golden Legacy Comics? All right, so Golden Legacy Comics was done by a guy by the name of Bertram Fitzgerald. Bertram was this businessman who in the 1960s had the foresight to understand that one of the easiest ways to communicate with it was intended for young people, but it was actually accessible to everybody, was through comics. So we got a lot of prominent Black cartoonists, right, who operated in the 60s and 70s, and he would publish these comics, but a lot of people don't know. He didn't publish those comics and have them distributed to regular comic book shops. He had a corporate deal with Coca-Cola. And Coca-Cola printed those books and distributed them all over the country. So for many folks, particularly young kids, their first introduction to civil rights through a literary lens was through Golden Legacy Comics. That's what we're doing. I'm proud to say I knew Bertram. In the 90s, Bertram was about to have his work transferred over to the internet, and I was a digital guy, and I was involved with this dude who was trying to facilitate that process. Now, the deal didn't work out, but I ended up, myself and my twin brother, ended up talking to Bertram several times to know the man personally. Now, I wasn't a deep friend or anything like that, but he let me know that you can create your own system to release the work. So what you're talking about, that's all that this is for me. It's an extension of that. So what the Department of Education is doing is sort of that, but what we're doing is sort of that too. Yeah, sure.
So your whole piece about the archive, for me, it speaks to me about the archive of illustration in hip hop. And so recently I was working with researchers who are trying to gather the way that people democratized hip hop and illustration, just with not just flyers, but small cartoons. And probably an accomplishment I have never really talked about publicly before is this online digital magazine called Black Perspectives. And it basically built a career for Ibram Kendi, for Keisha Blaine, and basically it's transformed the way digital scholarship goes on in a digital world. And I did a series for them. I think it's like 40 articles with all these different contributors about the different permutations of music, art, illustration, and academic life. That was from 2014, 2015. And these are all up and available online. Like if you go Black Perspectives and just look at the keyword search, it's gonna be comics. Comic studies is now a real field. And people are paying big money to find illustrations from not just the 70s, 80s, and 90s of people doing the work like what Tim was outlining, but like in Jamaica, they're going back 30 and 40 years. You can go back into Black newspapers into the 19 teens and 20s with stuff that shaped J.A. Rogers' career. And there's all this art that talks about all of the dynamism and the power of Black culture that no one has ever collected, let alone digitized and made available. And so this is just a treasure trove that we've not even scratched the surface of.
Okay, I wanna.
Okay, we're gonna take one last question,
Okay.
just one last question, because I know you guys are probably waiting, we're gonna do a book signing after this, but I'll take one more. I just wanted to say
I
thank you.
can't speak.
That's one of his students, guys. That's why he was trying to
Former.
get out.
I have stepped out of academia. I just want to say, first of all, thank you all for the amazing work that you've done, documenting this and immortalizing this history that oftentimes is neglected. And I have a question for both of you, and it's a two-pronged question. How do you think, Dr. Greason, the way that you captured this history, how do you think that through this graphic novel, it has altered or challenged the ways that people perceive not just written, but illustrated history? And to you, I ask, from your from your perspective, illustrating for this and hearing so much knowledge that exists outside of this, how do you think, what do you see the future of graphic history looking like in the way that it represents Black communities and also like social history, like hip hop and other genres of music? Sorry, very loaded questions, but
Well,
I wanted to
that's
hear
pretty
one.
doggone loaded there.
I'm gonna jump in here. You taught her well.
You
taught her well.
That's like, I'm like, damn, man, where'd you get that from? All right.
I'm going to be very honest and say that Milky was way talented before she ever met me. And so I was just fortunate enough to be kind of caught up in the rising tide as she just continues to grow. I will say, you know, the answer to the question you posed to me.
I just want to give her
Don't ask the question. And so she did 2 years of work in the archive at Macalester College in St. Paul. And published Imani, which is a journal that was published by the students in the tradition of the Black Panther Party in the 1970s and had not been published for 50 years. And she went back in the archive, dug out all the material, generated new art from among her peers, and published the new edition along with her colleague Bryson Berry sitting next to her. And so those two are part of a team that has just reinvigorated the African diaspora on the campus by doing exactly what she asked about. That for me, the work of creating the archive, trying to find the resources, you asked me a question about how has it changed the trajectory of doing this work. It's really difficult. And I will say in the tradition of kind of Afrofuturism and Wakanda, that's the moment when I knew we had taken a step forward on the path to freedom, in that the possibility of the African diaspora as the highest expression of human civilization was now concrete in the minds of billions of people. That film has not let the global civilization go, even with Wakanda Forever being a kind of lamentation about the death of Chadwick Boseman. We're still growing in our strength to show exactly how the world we will build will be better than the world we inherited. And I would think our current presidential campaign has some echoes of this. When you see that debate stage and one candidate just shame and demean this other that is unworthy to stand on the stage, that's just the smallest piece of what we can accomplish. And I will say very frankly, it stands in tradition of your older brother, it stands in the tradition of this store and the people who founded it. We have not begun to tap into our power, but we have a chance to do something that will free most of humanity. So that's my hope for what we can start to build with a book like this.
All right, so, okay, is that it?
You
Oh.
can answer.
Yeah, I know, yeah. All right, so I would just say this, and I think just to paraphrase, just trying to make sure, where do I think it could go in terms of visuals? That's what okay. All right, so how many Christians or former Christians do we have here by show of hands? All right, you guys remember those little pamphlets done by this artist named Jack T. Chick? Remember those little pamphlets? Now, Jack T. Chick, he was crazy. But he was prolific. He did hundreds of those things over the decades. And as a result, his effect colors the way Christianity, for better or worse, is practiced to this day. Right? So comics is a powerful medium. It's an incredibly powerful medium because it is a marriage between the word and the image with no motion. Everything is implied. And so I have been practicing cartoonist since I was 4 or 5 years old, right? Because my older brothers did it and I've done it. And it was a period where I didn't do it for about 12 years when I was in the game industry. But coming back, on a vain point of view, when you know your stuff is in the Smithsonian, it's been to the White House, it's in the Library of Congress, it's been to the Met. Those are all white institutions, right? But what's happening is we are turning into a multicolored society. So we're not just this external history anymore. We're literally history. We're part of it. So this book is right on time. Know what I mean? The only issue I have right now is the sheer amount of work that has to be done. It's the only thing I got. I'm 58 years old. I'm doing all right. I need to stop and lay off the sugar and the honey. But I got to take my blood pressure pills, pace myself, and keep doing work because what this book represents for me, an association I have with Christina and Walter, a legacy that will outlive me. It will be here 100 years, 200 years from now. And that's, for a visual storyteller, what else is there? I hope that answers your question.
So, I'm gonna wrap up this segment, but before we do, first of all, I want to thank Sankofa yet again for hosting. This is the second time we've been here together. I know you've done some other work here before that. But once again, I just want to thank Sankofa for doing what a bookstore like this should be doing, serving the community, okay? And also want to extend a personal thank you to both of you as well as your company for inviting me to be part of this journey yet again. And I truly appreciate that. So once again, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for coming out this evening as we move on to the second part of the production. But thank you, have a good evening, and thank you, gentlemen.
All right, before you do it, can you please turn the lights on because we're going to need this for social media. We got to do the selfie. All right. We got to do the selfie. Everyone turn the lights on here. All right. Because if we don't do it, then we're going to have a problem. So just before you leave, hey, everybody. Hey, how you doing?
Well, don't forget, actually, we're gonna have a book signing, if anybody wants to purchase
Yes,
the book. It's
anybody
up
wants
front
copies.
in
Right.
the,
Here we go. We're getting it done here. Here we go. We're going right here. Hang on. I'm just getting it done. I know it's going to take a second. All right, here we go. All right. Let me do this. Let me do this. All right, everybody. Oh my God, that is amazing. Everybody in there, I can't see. My eyes are horrible, but there we go. All right, everybody raise your hands and point it towards for the sky. All right, now we're gonna go to video. And we're gonna announce two things. First, we're gonna do Sankofa, right? And then we're gonna do the graphic history of hip hop. The first one will be Sankofa. When I do, point my hand.
Sankofa.
Graphic history of hip hop.
Yeah.
All right, thank you guys so
Thank
much.
you, guys. The signing's gonna be up front here, so Walter and Tim can just take a seat when you have a chance. You guys can kind of come up and we'll do the signing up front here.
You guys have pens?
No,
Christina, can you
I have
sign?
my Sharpie here.
Walter needs a Sharpie.
Yeah. Oh,
Thank
if
you guys for
if
showing
you
up.
guys want to do a signing, we'll line up around here on the left side.
Right here, and then we can start right here, all the way to the back. And
Oh, absolutely. Thank you, brother. We'll be in touch. We'll be in touch. Oh.
Yeah. You in there? There you go.
Come on, Walter, get in there, man.
All right. Take care, Joe.
All right. I'm sorry? Sure, go for it, man. They're gonna let us know what we gotta do. We're gonna take care of it.
Where's your college?
I know, it's so, we don't keep copies on us.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you. Jamar Nicholas from Philadelphia was the one who did that.
Okay, so.
Oh, nice. So you will go to.
Go to the site. Let us know, 'cause we need artists.
All right. You will go see Christina over there in the back. I need you to share your information with her. Thank you.
We go to PWI, so.
Because we might need more time. Like really. No, we might need you to do that. All right.
You have Tim.
Yes.
You have your board member going? No.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'll see you. Okay.
Reach out and.
Yeah, we probably should have. I do have extra in the back room. Do I have an extra Sharpie?
I can get you.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
They're signing, yeah.
Okay.
We're gonna line up on that.
All right.
Where's your bag? Your bag?
Yeah, it's in the. I can go and get it. It's in the back room, locked away. But I think they said they're gonna get us an extra Sharpie. Yes, sign your information here, right there, please. And then please, I do tags. Legibly, please. Howard.
Yeah.
Okay. What's your major? Oh Lord, here we go. What's your major?
Wilson, freshman, Portland, Oregon, political science.
Okay, there you go. There you go.
Hey, Walter.
Fantastic. Right. So whenever they let us come over,
Yeah, they're gonna start finding.
Okay.
Oh, really? Yeah. Oh, that's even more cool. I need to get your contact. Yeah.
You guys signed the copy?
Well, as soon as they
Yeah,
start
the first one's right there.
So-
Yeah, they were just signing the emails.
Okay, so let's move that over here. So we keep people moving.
Yeah, because we're gonna want them to sign after we. Pleasure, man. Please, stay right there. All right, we ready? Oh, hey, how you doing? Study hard, study hard. All right, you ready? Hey, how you doing? Okay, what's your name? Am I signing it to you? Yes. Okay.
Remember earlier? It was dark.
There you go. Hey, could you sign your email right there? You can leave it on the table. All right, there's nothing else for it. Hey, how you doing? What's your name? N-K-O-C-I-A. Thank you.
graphics are really great.
Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. Let's see here, what we're gonna do here, we're gonna do, yep, that. This.
We don't know what's up right now. We don't know.
It correlates between Studio Paint and Photoshop.
Oh my God, that is accurate as of like now.
Do it, do it, do it. It's never been easier to do. The technology is out there to do it, to really make it happen. You do it right, so definitely do it. There you go. Thank you so much. And where's the
I'll make sure she signs.
Okay,
We're
okay.
right here, I'm on it.
Just okay.
Okay.
Oh,
To you.
I mean,
Law,
yeah,
okay.
no, you,
Thank you.
coming to you, girl.
Okay. That's it, go here.
Yes,
There are
please.
different artists that have done with different things, I would say offer, but also kind of punk rock.
Okay.
This is the one that I mentioned right there.
Malcolm McLaren. Got it. I will look it up this evening.
Yeah, but there are other,
So is it
like,
Daddy
there are
Daughter
the
Night?
punk rock,
See?
and hip hop,
Yeah.
and kind
I
of
signed
combined.
her name in.
But the fusion.
Hold on, wait, I got, these are my special gifts.
Okay,
So
pleasure.
Charlie and I have known each other since high school.
Oh, wow.
So longer than I know him.
Ah, okay.
You're gonna draw?
This one's for Lily here.
Yeah,
Yes.
really, yeah.
Afrofuturist book in 2020. So it's in the process of being illustrated now.
But you are looking for folks to do layout.
Yeah, I guess, yeah. I've actually saved one of the artworks if you want to see it, the illustration. You want to see it? Okay.
Trying to baby after the election. Oh, there it goes.
Fly there.
Yeah, I saw that.
What's your name? Spell it. L-I-L-I-A.
But this one, I did in 2020.
Versus what?
That's the last one.
Okay.
So wait a minute.
Thank you. He's gonna sign his part. Thank you so much. Hey, how you doing? Pleasure, man. Pleasure, pleasure. Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Now I gotta do it again.
Yeah.
Now I gotta do it.
So the trick was, we were over here in the cabin and she looked at the she said balls. So we got our answer.
Good, Lily.
This is
Well done.
Oh, that's awesome. This is Walter, also known as Dave.
Hey, how you doing?
Fine. I'm Charlie.
Okay. Okay. Oh, okay, okay. Fantastic.
I will take things.
Okay, thank you for coming, man. Thank you, thank you. All right, let's see you.
Oh, yeah, yeah. What do you say?
Appreciate you being here.
Yeah, no, it's, well, yeah, my folks have moved out of that area, so they're down, in county. So I don't get to Mount Vernon much anymore, but when I do, well, when I do, I'm like, it's completely different.
I was just going down 33 the other day, and I was like,
Yeah, what is happening?
Yeah.
Yeah, we, I moved down here in '93, and everything is different.
Oh.
Actually created the site.
Yeah,
Yeah, well, I was on the, there you go, local elected thing.
All right, next up. Thank you, Roberts. Thank you. Oh, no. Oh, no, man. Come on. Oh, man. Okay, what's your name? Tony.
We talked on Thursday when he was doing my hair.
Oh, that's awesome.
So you guys are great. We can talk about Facebook later.
All good.
I told. Yeah.
I don't need to get
Thank you, man. Thank you. You know, it's one of those things where sometimes you wonder if something resonates, and it's always a pleasure. I've been meeting people who the book has connected with, and thank you. But sometimes, you know, I've been doing this for years, but this is the first one that really went out. And sometimes you just don't know. Everybody I can tell how. Okay, here's the thing. Oh, you know what I'm doing like that?
Yes, please.
Absolutely, right here.
I'm just going to make sure about this.
Yeah.
Thank you, so much.
I think as soon as you finish putting the piece down, how's the rest of the day?
You made my day. Oh, my day. Really.
You with your camera?
I was.
I don't do it like for work. I do it when
I went to congressional.
I admire people who can work on that because I
All right, ready? Smile.
I would, you know,
With it. Go watch it. Right there.
Oh, nice. Oh, I just saw them. I tried to work.
And look at one with my camera.
Oh, wow.
I'm really into this.
Thank you so much.
Absolute pleasure to see you. Hope we have a chance to talk much more.
Please.
All right, pleasure, brother. Pleasure, man. Thank you so much.
No, it was absolutely my pleasure. Y'all really, say, season 1. Season 1, episode 3.
Oh, okay.
It does look pretty.
All right.
I'm Jeff.
Yes, sir.
Pleasure.
How you doing, man?
No. I'm a long way. I don't know if you know about
You heard about that guy?
yeah. So they don't know they yet. Listen,
They-
I was so
like-
excited.
No.
I can't. As something, he knows the actor.
All right, brother. Let's do your drawing in there. So,
I know what I want to be about, but
yeah, there you go.
I like what you said about the movies.
Thank you so much. My pleasure. Oh, actually, I got to get one if you hold it. Just for the record. I'm gonna get back to you. Because that's my book that came out. Wow, Infinite always shows up. Always. Thank you, brother. Thank you so much. Thank you. All right, well, take care. Hey, how you doing? What's your name? All right, spell that. All right, amazing.
It's like you said,
Thank you.
so much.
I know what all right.
You actually went back to that.
So if you look at the back of this,
That's a good question. I think that's up on the New York City side.
on the New York City side, there is a playlist.
Yeah,
But I should let you know, we are now being Spotify. We are doing the beginning process of doing the audio book very soon and translation. Yeah. But I gotta finish book 2 first.
So you're not trying to do grandstanding.
It's bad.
That's why we're trying to figure it out.
So, you know, it's not.
I know understand what it is. There's words that See you later. Yes, sir. Pleasure. Thank you. Thank you.
But I also teach classes when I was before I came. Because I knew him back when he was
Yeah, he tried, but after a point it was like, this would go on forever. It would. It's not good. Hey, how you doing? Pleasure. See you again. Meet you again. All right. Spell your name.
Are you
on L-K-E.
That's it. So I'll reach out.
I know exactly.
Take care. Thank you.
I'll let you tell us right here.
I feel good. I was just wanting to say I'm really happy to hear about your work. It's my first time hearing about it. And your performance today was good. I can tell you, like, I read the first score all the time.
Spectacular.
Did you get on the right here?
Oh.
Okay, so it's called Planning Empire Simulation because I basically just does simulating and the light system how
There you go. Thank you.
being a secretary in the Air Force and the racism and how it's simulated. I go into the education system and how a white curriculum really starts to form and deteriorate the African child's mind and ways to go against that curriculum. I am on social media.
So what is Instagram the best way to stay in touch?
Yeah, Instagram and yeah.
You gotta tell me what Instagram is. It's something
Okay, I would love that. Should I just put it in a notebook?
I'll have to put it in notebook. Okay.
Yeah, under my name and close it.
So, Howard?
Georgetown.
Oh, well, don't you say that like that's a bad thing. Georgetown is awesome.
Is it?
Oh, yes, it is awesome.
That's how we are about that. So
You might have feelings about it now, but it's not like anyone else is going to hear you say Georgetown. They're going to be like, whoa! Nobody said it was going to be easy.
Yeah.
Right? That's your job.
Okay. Thank you. I'll write it. Thank you so much.
That is your job.
Nice to meet you.
It is your job to carry the weight.
Yes.
So yes, Georgetown.
It's all of our
That's real. Yes, but your specific job is to carry your weight.
right.
That is literally what you were put on the planet to do through Georgetown. They can't. That's why you're there.
I graduated.
Okay, well, fine. Then you're going to be representing them in the future. So there you go. You did what you're supposed to do. I'm sorry. No. You got it through Georgetown. That was fun.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Oh, you want to just
All five. Also this side.
yeah.
Here first. All right. Here we go.
Great.
Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Oh, I gotta sign this joint?
Yes.
You know you got like 10 of these already, yes?
Actually, I have no
Oh,
It's so different.
Oh, the 24 pages.
Some people will call it.
It's so different.
Yeah, it's just 24. The pages are in there, but it's just 24 pages.
Oh my God.
This is 92.
This makes your whole like conversation about extending it so much deeper because I've literally I've seen both copies.
There you go. Thank you so much.
Can I get a quick picture before you?
Sure.
Before you finish. Step up, get a picture. You want to be in front or you want to be up on stage? Right there. Yeah, come in front. Better.
Yes.
Yeah. Wait, no, I haven't been there. I'm new here. We don't get that red light. There we go. There we go.
and what happened.
Right, thanks.
Y'all gonna let me cover the Mac Daily tomorrow.
It never leaves us.
All right, so that's it, we're done, right?
I'm gonna take this thing down. Remind me. So I can never, we never take these off. I'll have to embrace it. It just keeps on page one.
I'm trying to remember this. I know.
So, trying to get information about
This is like a whole.
Oh, okay.
There's a lot of really down to this talk. It's literally different than what I ever read. This is insane.
So does he?
I want to see all this.
Yeah.
Hey, man.
I was back there listening.
Like I went to picture, you know, like my daughter has a first podcast. So I went to picture. Yeah, let me get a quick picture. Bro. They took down the banner behind us.
Oh.
I'm
sorry, I didn't
Hold on, let me get out of the way. There you go.
Get in the way.
Come on, Tim.
Okay.
Get in the way. There we go. There we go. Okay. Great.
So I owe you.
No, maybe
consequences of that. So that's.
Yes.
This whole-
And you owe me.
Yes, I do. Oh my God. Ready to go.
This is the only way I'm gonna get one signed by you and Tim.
Everything on mine is.
Because I'm new, I don't know so much. Policy, so I have to go and check policy and then I Yeah, okay.
All right. There we go. So you got it?
Yeah.
All right. So I think we have one more unsigned copy here. But do we have a hardcover copy? I have to give one to Heidi. He has a soft cover copy.
Okay. I think I put some on the hard cover, I think.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah.
So, let's see, I got my phone. Yes, no. Right.